all my life I had tried to be more normal, whatever whatever normal is, because nobody is normal like that.
Right.
But I'd always tried to be as normal as possible. I'd always tried to hide my sensitivity and not reveal it to anybody else. Once I read the book 7 years ago, I started reframing what being highly sensitive means. I started thinking about the fact that a lot of the struggle that I had or I'd had till then about being highly sensitive is not because I was too sensitive or because sensitivity is a weakness, but more about the fact that I was always trying to struggle with my feelings. Like it was almost like my feelings were like these ocean inside me, and I was trying to put a lid on them. And if you are a certain kind of person and you're always trying to not be that person, you're obviously going to create a lot of suffering for yourself.
Right.
So like once I started really thinking about the fact that sensitivity was rooted in something, like it was biologically wired, I realized it was almost like, like I couldn't change the color of my eyes. So just like I can't change the color of my eyes, I can also not sort of become less sensitive. So that sort of started my journey with the word, and learning about it and thinking about all of the beliefs that I was, carrying inside me.
Hi there, this is Sarah Kuhn. If you are an INFJ or in a relationship with an INFJ or related to an INFJ in any way, and you want to figure out how they operate, what makes them tick, and how to communicate with them better, this is the show for you. It's called The Quiet Ones. This is a show that deconstructs INFJs, what they are, how they think, how they feel, how they operate, and how they relate to people with other personality types. Whether you have just found out that you're an INFJ or have known for a number of years, there is something for everyone. You will learn more about your personality type so that you understand who you are and understand how you operate in the workplace, in relationships, in your family, and with friends. I want you to walk away from every episode feeling like you have a place of belonging, feeling like you are no longer alone, feeling like you have a place to be heard and seen and understood as you really are. This is a place to connect with other INFJs, to learn and grow and really thrive. I want to give you inspiration and real-life strategies that are going to help you figure out how to live your best life every single day. Though INFJs are very rare, you are not alone in this world. You are not the only one who thinks the way that you do and feels the way that you do. Hear from real INFJs just like you. Hi there, Sarah Kuhn here. Welcome to another episode of The Quiet Ones. How are you today? I really hope that you're doing well. I am doing a lot better than what I have been in the last couple of weeks. I've been having a huge problem focusing, which is never a problem for me. So it's been really, really frustrating and really weird having to deal with that. But it's getting a lot better and I'm excited about that. It's nice to be able to just sit down and write or focus on one project rather than having your mind go 1,000 different directions. I don't really know how I fixed it. I think I've just been getting a lot more sleep. I've been trying to spend more time doing me things, things that I like to do rather than things that I have to do. I also think that it helps a lot what the weather is. Boston is so sketchy as far as weather goes. It's like extremely moody. We had a storm that was a lot of rain and a ridiculous amount of wind that lasted for like 3 days. And I think that was a huge problem for me because the wind is like 30-mile-per-hour sustained winds. So just like constant 30-mile-per-hour winds, and then 50 to 70-mile-per-hour gusts of wind. And I live right on the ocean. So like my apartment window faces Nantasket Beach. And it's beautiful most of the time. And I absolutely love it. But when we get those storms where the wind just keeps going for like 3 days, just constant, It's really bad. So this morning I woke up and I opened my curtains and it was so bright because the sun was shining. And I was like, wait a minute, what is this? I haven't seen the sun in like 5 or 6 days. I've forgotten what it looks like and how bright it was. So I went out this morning to get my coffee with my mask on and my sunglasses on, and I thought, wow, I look like I'm ready to rob a bank or something. This is really, really weird. But yeah, it makes such a difference seeing the sun and having a nice day outside, and just being able to go outside. So if you haven't been outside in a few days and you're having a problem focusing, maybe give it a try. Go for a walk. Hopefully there's nice weather where you're at. And I know that as we're getting later in the year, it's going to start getting warmer and warmer if it's not already warm where you're at. So yeah, if you're having a problem focusing, I would definitely try doing that. All right, I have something really, really exciting that I want to share with you. I've been thinking a lot about all of this extra time that we have on our hands, and I wanted to create something that's really amazing for you guys and something that's also really helpful. So many people ask me about finding your purpose. As INFJs, I feel like it's a rite of passage for us. Like, we all get lost when we're in our early teens or our 20s. Some of us get stuck in that for years. I know that I did. We all feel like we have to do something really big and meaningful with our lives, but we don't know what it is. We really, really struggle a lot to figure out what it is. We feel this huge burden to do something big and meaningful. And there's a lot of us who are also reevaluating our lives right now during this pandemic and wanting to make a change. But again, we don't really know where to start. That was me too, up until last year. I was really struggling, but then I found my purpose. I realized this big thing that I was supposed to do, and everything changed. It really was like finding true love. It's exactly as amazing as everyone says that it is. So my purpose combines a lot of the things that I love, things like social media, graphic design, writing, and connecting with other intuitive people. I love knowing that I'm helping others while doing work that I really, really enjoy. And I want to be able to help you do the same thing. So I've created this challenge that's called Purpose and Action. It's a 5-day challenge where I'm going live on Facebook every day for 5 days starting Monday, May 4th. I'm going to show you everything you need to do to find your purpose and start taking action on it right now. There's a link in the description where you can sign up, or you can go to infjwoman.com for all the details. Please make sure that you check out the challenge. If you are searching for your purpose or you're feeling lost at all right now, there's a lot of great information in there that will help you. Okay, before we get started with the interview, I want to make sure that you know that you can get the show notes along with all the links to everything that we talked about by going to thequietonespodcast.com. And while you're there, make sure that you check out my book, The INFJ User Guide. This book will help you understand what it means to be an INFJ and to see the impact that it has on your life. And it'll help you discover how life-changing this knowledge can be for you. I know it has really changed my life, and I want the same thing for you. My goal is to get this book into the hands of as many people as possible. It's designed for anyone who's INFJ or who has an INFJ in their life and wants to know more about us. And again, you can find all of the information for that at thequietonespodcast.com. All right. So today we're talking to Ritu Kaushal, who's the author of the memoir, The Empath's Journey, and several other amazing books. Ritu and I had a wonderful conversation about being empaths and highly sensitive in this sometimes brutal world, and how to navigate writing and being creative with sensitive personalities. Also, as a reminder, you can watch the video interview at youtube.com/thequietonespodcast. Okay, so you're an INFP. How did you find out that you were INFP?
Well, honestly, I don't even remember. It's been like so long ago. So I think it was probably like 15, 20 years back. And I probably came across it in a book. And then when the internet sort of happened, I think I was online searching about I think I was on a journey to kind of find myself at that point. So it was like in my early 20s. And I think I sort of got into it at that point of time. So it's been a long time, like at least 15 years, if not a lot more than that.
Sure. Do you remember how much it changed your life, or is there still things right now that that you see are big changes because of it?
So I think over the course of like these last 15 years, I have sort of engaged with MBTI on and off. So there have been times in my life when I'm really sort of struggling with something and I come back to MBTI because I want to figure out what is it, because I want to sort of figure myself out. So I think it has helped me a lot. For example, I think it took me until my early 30s, which was a few years ago, to realize that you know that INFP, you might have seen an INFP meme which says that INFP's feelings are like sort of like this iceberg. So only the tip of their feelings is visible to other people.
Right.
The the rest of it is sort of hidden. And I used to feel like, oh my God, I have such intense feelings like all the time. I'm like a pretty, I'm an intense and emotional person. So I used to think that those feelings were visible to everyone. But I think, like really consciously thinking about it uh, helped me realize that wasn't the case. So to most people, I think I come across as very reserved, very quiet, and I'm kind of very different with different people. So I think if I'm really comfortable with someone, I'm very, that extroverted intuition is kind of,
Sure.
and so that's sort of, so some people actually think that I'm an extrovert. So some acquaintances I have, or some, like sort of like friends, like casual friends, uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about something which I enjoy and which I'm really interested in, which is like my topic, like the MBTI, that I'm sort of like very into it. And they actually think I'm not an introvert, although I'm like a huge introvert. Like I would say I'm very introverted. So I think part of it is just understanding that my feelings are not visible to other people. They're not very clear. Although that internal world is really like my, it's like my entire world as an
Right.
ISP. And so that is one thing. And I think one of the other things in the past 5 or 6 years, which I have um, sort of really consciously worked at, is learning how to follow my intuition, because I think I grew up in a culture where and in an environment where rationality was given a lot of importance. And
Right.
uh, I think over the years I've realized that I actually have very good intuition. Like, when I meet someone new, or I have a feeling about something, or a hunch about something, or these little like flickering feelings of curiosity. So I think I've let myself follow it instead of trying to get um, proof for proof for whether I should do it.
Right.
And I think
Yeah.
that has made a huge difference in my life, because I used to talk myself, like I feel like I have always been a very intuitive person, but I used to talk myself out of my intuitions all the time,
Mm-hmm.
override them with my with my actual rational mind. So I think that is one thing which I've sort of learned through MBTI. And there are a bunch of other things.
Sure. I
Yeah.
want to go back to something that you said about um, you thought that your feelings showed,
Mhm,
but there was really so much more that doesn't show.
mhm,
What's interesting to me is I'm kind of the opposite.
mhm.
Um, I hate it when my feelings show. Feelings to me are something that's like incredibly personal, and I don't
Right,
want anybody to know about them, but I have like these really deep feelings that usually
mhm,
affect me a lot, and
right.
sometimes about little things. But when it's a bigger thing, like the bigger it is, the less I want people to know about it. So like when there's somebody that's making me mad, or something at work that's annoying me or something,
Mhm.
it's like I'm hyper aware of my face and trying to make sure that there's no expression on my face because
Right, right, right,
I
right.
don't want people to know how I feel at all.
I actually agree with you because I am a very private person as well. So I don't want like all my feelings to show as well. And I'm very conscious of how I'm coming across. So I actually completely resonate with what you just said. I think the problem comes when there are certain values that I really sort of hold dear, and I think a lot of people don't get to see that right off the bat. So like I'm very laid back generally, and so I'll adjust to what people want. And I think I'm also a recovering people pleaser like a lot of INFPs and INFJs.
Yes.
Apart from the people pleasing aspect, I think I'm pretty adjusting, so I'll be fluid about how I am. And I think it takes people by surprise when we clash over something which is like a real value for me. So till then, it was almost as if they didn't know me, and
Right.
suddenly this huge thing has come up. So I think I feel like I have these two separate feelings around it. So I feel like want to keep on being private, because that's who I am. I don't want to reveal myself to everyone. And
Hmm.
I wish I could reveal uh, some of who I am. So, our path forward and my relationships are smoother, because I feel like that would be helpful.
Yes, I understand exactly what you're saying. I was having this conversation not too long ago. I rented an apartment, and the lady that I rented it from was kind of an older lady,
Mhm.
and she wanted a daughter more than she wanted a tenant.
Uh,
And
mhm.
um, 6 months into the lease, she was doing a lot of things that she shouldn't be doing, like, just opening the door and walking downstairs. And I'm like, this is not okay. So I was
Mhm.
easygoing and nonchalant until there's a couple, she started opening my mail. She wasn't
Mhm.
shoveling the snow, and I live in Boston, so snow is like this huge thing.
Right. Mhm.
And all of a sudden, it was like almost like she flipped a switch. And I'm like, listen, this is not going to work. And she saw this whole other side to me, and she's like, I don't even know who you are. And I'm like, you're right, you don't know who I am.
Exactly.
But I've had the same experience with some of my friends too. And some people in my audience have told me the same thing, that it almost feels like we are, like a lot what you said, like um, we change our personalities to suit the people around us so that they're
Right.
comfortable, and we can be good friends to them. But then
Mhm.
there comes a point when they bump up against our values or something like
Mhm.
that, and this whole other side of us comes out, and they're like, whoa, what is this?
This is the
You're not the person I
question.
thought you were.
Right, right. It's like you're like easygoing for like forever, and then
Right.
suddenly either like some big boundary is crossed, or something which you really value has been violated, and
Hmm.
then it's a different story. I I can understand why that might be a problem for other people, because just to relate to me. Uh, but it's like this tricky balance, because I think what you said about being reserved and not wanting to share everything with everyone. So I think I definitely have these like these, I guess, an internal, like, comfort levels with different people.
Hmm.
So yeah, it becomes a bit tricky that way, so I'm learning.
Yes, it's
All
a
of us.
constant learning process, and how to
Yes,
navigate all of that,
definitely. Yeah.
especially too when you're highly sensitive.
Yes.
I've been learning about Myers-Briggs for probably close to 10 years now.
Hmm.
But it's only been in the last few years that I started learning about what highly sensitive means.
Hmm.
Can you explain that to us a little bit and walk us through that and how it pertains to your personality type as well?
Hmm. So I I was the child who was always called too sensitive. So I think, like all sensitive children, I grew up being called sensitive. So I've always had this sort of like complicated relationship with those words, because even as a child, I realized that that was what made up the best part of me. And yet that same sensitivity was also the thing which made people look at me in a certain way, or think that I was weak. Like as a child, I used to cry very easily, you know. So, so all of that. So that is, so being sensitive is something which has sort of been the essence of who I am, or the way I think about myself, like for all my life. But I first came to know about being highly sensitive, I think around 7 years back. And 7 years back, I moved from India to the United States. So I stay in the San Francisco Bay Area. So I just gotten married and I followed my husband here. And it was during the time that my sister in India was actually reading The Highly Sensitive Person by Dr. Elaine Aron. And she's an INFJ and she's also highly sensitive. And she recommended the book to me. And I read the book on her recommendation. I had actually weirdly come across the book in India as well a few years ago. And had sort of, I think I'd borrowed it from the library and sort of flipped through it. But I wasn't, I think, at a point where sensitive was a good word. So,
Right.
so I didn't sort of take to the book immediately. But once I had moved here to the States, so on the one hand, it was a really lovely experience. As an INFP, I love like traveling and trying new things, having these new experiences. I had just gotten married, so it was fun to set up our new home together. And so all of that was amazing. But moving to a different culture, to a different country where I'd never been before, it was also very overstimulating. And I was again struggling with those old feelings of, why am I so sensitive? If only I wasn't so sensitive, I would find this transition much easier. So, and I remember a conversation that I had with my sister during that time. And she told me, she's like, what might take other people 6 months to a year might take you a little longer, because you're processing everything so deeply. So you should just be, aware of it. It was during that time that I actually read The Highly Sensitive Person, which is where the term highly sensitive comes from. And that's the common term for sensory processing sensitivity, which is a biological trait rooted in actual biological differences. So once I read the book during this, during this very tumultuous time in my life,
Right.
it sort of opened my eyes to the fact that my sensitivity wasn't something that I could just wish away. So it, like all my life, I had tried to be more normal, whatever whatever normal is, because nobody is normal like that.
Right.
But I'd always tried to be as normal as possible. I'd always tried to hide my sensitivity and not reveal it to anybody else. And once I read the book 7 years ago, I started reframing what being highly sensitive means. So I started thinking about the fact that so one of the things I thought about was maybe a lot of the struggle that I had, or I'd had till then, about being highly sensitive is not because I was too sensitive or because sensitivity is a weakness, but more about the fact that I was always trying to struggle with my feelings. Like it was almost like my feelings were like these ocean inside me, and I was trying to put a lid on them. And if you are a certain kind of person and you're always trying to not be that person, you're obviously going to create a lot of suffering for yourself.
Right.
So, like once I started really thinking about the fact that sensitivity was rooted in something, like it was biologically wired, I realized it was almost like, like I couldn't change the color of my eyes. So just like I can't change the color of my eyes, I can also not sort of become less sensitive. So that sort of started my journey with the word, and learning about it and thinking about all of the beliefs that I was, carrying inside me. So that has sort of been my journey with sensitivity. Um, and I think a lot of INFPs and INFJs are highly sensitive. So one of my friends, Just Hoti, he has he has this website called the INF Club, and he did this really informal survey on Facebook in like an HSP group, where he asked like a bunch of people about what their MBTI personality type was, and I forget the exact number, but it was like a few hundred people who answered, and most of them were either INFPs or INFJs. So we'll have to kind of wait to see actual research around it. But from my just like the people I know personally, I think a lot of HSPs are INFPs and INFJs, and really like feeler types and intuitive, and people who are emotionally sensitive, and so they're sensitive to the mood of other people, and that makes that has its advantages, and it also has you might have boundary issues, so it also has those cons. So yeah.
It was almost life-changing for me when I realized that, in combination with my personality type too, because I thought everybody felt that way. And
Yeah, me too.
I thought everybody experienced the world the same way that I did. And then, I had this big realization that it's like, I thought people were just being rude because they weren't reacting to things the way that I would react to them, or they weren't treating situations the way I thought that they should. And then it's like, no, wait a minute, they don't see it that way. They don't feel things the same way that you do. That's why they don't react that way, because
Right.
they process information a lot differently than I do.
Yeah, I agree, because I think we're only familiar with our insides. I guess that so so it's very hard to, it's only as you grow up that you have those interactions and try to start figuring that out. And so I completely understand what you're saying.
Yes. It was the same way. My sister helped me to figure out that I'm an empath as well, which I didn't know what that meant. But I was trying to explain to her how I can almost feel other people's feelings. And she's like, well, I read this book. I think that you're an empath. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. but, but once I did some more research on it, I was like, oh, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Being able to feel something that you've really never experienced, but you can see somebody else experiencing it, is it's also one of those things that's like, I thought everybody else could do this too, and it's hard to describe. It's kind of like intuition in that way, like you were talking about before. Having those feelings and all of these things that they all work together, and sometimes it's kind of a mess trying to sort all of it out.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree, because you don't know like which part of you is because of what reason, whether it is your personality or your conditioning or just the way you are, the lens you're looking at things, what the lens is that you're using. So I completely agree. We're on the same page. And yeah, I think empath, because I used to feel like, how come other people don't notice, like exactly what you said. How come people are not noticing these qualities about this person, or this energy about this person? And I used to feel a little bit crazy. I used to feel like, am I sort of making this up in my head?
Right.
So it was a journey for me to understand. And I guess as you grow older, you have all these different experiences where you felt a certain way about a person, and then you did not follow that that feeling, and used your mind, and later on you prove right. So I think as you grow older, you have these collection of experiences where you start understanding that, no, I'm on to something. And even if other people can't see those things, doesn't mean those things are not real. So that energy that I'm feeling is real, and I need to follow my own perceptions and not talk myself out of them. So yeah, I think it's a journey.
Yes. I was just having this conversation last night with one of my friends about leaning into your intuition. And we were talking about manifesting as well, and um, following what you think that you should do and following the signs. And I've done that a few times in my life. And it seems almost crazy to the people around me. I grew up in the Midwest part of the United States, and I was there when I decided I was going to move to Boston, which is a really big leap. it's
Right.
it's 1,500 miles away, and I told my family I'm moving to Boston, and they're like, "You've never even been there. Why are you doing that?" And I'm like, "No, this is what I'm going to do. It's the right thing for me. All the signs are pointing in that direction, and I know that it's the best thing for me to do." Um, and they were like shaking their heads like, there's something wrong with you. But it really has been one of the best decisions that I've ever made, though, and I know that it was one of those things that was like my intuition was pointing me in that direction, because there were so many opportunities that have happened here that wouldn't have happened anywhere else. But a lot of people ask me about intuition. um, is there anything else that you can tell us about how to develop it? I know that you said that it gets better once you get older and you've worked through some of those situations, especially when it comes to people.
Right,
People is
especially,
really hard too.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think for me, it started my journey. I think back to my intuition started when I, at a really almost painful point in a sense uh, in my life. In the sense that I was having these, these one experience after another, different friendships, and where I was, where it became very one-sided, and I realized that I had known certain things about this person that I had now become, friends with, uh, even before I sort of like said my first like line to them. Yeah, like uh, so for example, I had this I got into this one-sided friendship with someone who I'm just I had never met her before, and even before we said one word to each other, I had this real clear feeling in my body, and I had this very clear thought that, oh, she's self-absorbed, and I really talked myself out of it completely. So this was like after I moved here to the States. So I was sort of like, I wanted to make friends. I was in this new place. So
Right.
trying to make friends as well. So I was in that sort of mindset. And so I kind of rationalized that feeling, that first sense of uh, uh, which proved to be right later on. So I think one is that, and then so I went through this entire few years where I just let myself follow my feelings, like any positive feeling I had, any curiosity, I let myself follow it and see what happened. So I think one is to experiment, and intuition is never something which. So intuition is not um, uh, like it'll never point you towards doing something harmful. So intuition is always there to protect you. So any positive feeling you have, if you're passing by a shop, a store, and you want to, you want to go in, and it makes no like a rational sense why you want to go in there. Just let yourself follow that feeling, experiment, see what happens. So one is just giving yourself permission to do that, and kind of not expecting a validation straight away. So experimenting. And I think the second thing, which really has been the thing for me, is working with my dreams. So I talk about it in my book as well. So there's like a whole chapter about dreams. And I think when you are tuning into your dreams, you're really sort of tuning into your inner world, and you're sort of coming closer to that self, which is not like your persona, which is, not what you're presenting to other people, but which is really your core self. And I think there's like a wiser part of us which knows things which we don't consciously know. So I think if you are interested in intuition, I think uh, starting to keep a dream journal and like that is something I would like highly recommend. Like it's really been like sort of like the thing for me in the past like 5 or 6 years. So that's one of the things. um, I can give you an example to make it a little concrete. Yeah. uh, so so I moved here to the States in 2012, and shortly afterwards I did several like writing workshops. I've always wanted to write for like the last 15-20 years, but I did several writing workshops at the time, and then there came a time when I decided like I was only workshopping material and I was not putting my work out there. And it was then that I actually started my blog, and I started so I started putting my work out there, but I also stopped doing any more workshops. And once I stopped doing those workshops, I had fewer means of connecting with like-minded people, because I stay here in the Silicon Valley. So a lot of the people I know are like friends of my husband's. Most of them are like engineers. So they're like, a lot of them are introverts, but they're also very different from me. So they're not like feelers. They're not like, they're INTPs or INTJs, and all of those kind of personality types. So it was during this absence of of a community where I could talk about my writing or be with people who also thought of themselves as artists, like this same as I do. It was during that time that I actually had this series of dreams. So in one dream, it was a dream of a pregnant woman, and she is cycling. She's on a cycle and she's cycling uphill, and she's finding it, and she's trying to take herself to the hospital, and she's trying to cycle, and she's but she's finding it harder and harder to do that. And sometime later I had another dream which also featured a pregnant woman. And in this dream there was this pregnant woman in an ancient bath surrounded by other women who were helping her give birth. And these dreams came during a time when I was actually writing my book. So I was actually trying to birth a project. So I knew I of course dreams speak in lyrical language. So it took me a little while to realize that what my dreams were saying. So uh, just like when someone gives birth, although the woman, you're on your own when you're giving birth, but you also need that support. So you might need a doula, you need someone to hold your hand, you might need your mom, or so there is this energy that you need to actually create that new life. And I think so I was also working with my dreams during that time, and I realized that my dream is showing different angles of the same situation. I'm trying to give birth to my book, and I have sort of created and nurtured it, but I'm finding it hard to go through the actual birthing process of the book because I don't have community. And it was then that I decided to join a writing group near my house, where we just met, and there was no critique given. We just met up and we wrote for an hour, and I got a chance to connect with people. And and it was then when I took that action in real life that my dreams disappeared. So dreams come up to sort of show you where your psyche is, what is happening inside you. And once you have taken action in the real world, you then there's a new wave of dreams which come up. So I think like working with dreams is like amazing. Like if you sort of tune into your dreams, you'll see what colors are there, uh, and that might be the energy which is calling to you right now. So for example, if red appears in your dream, like a red might appear or orange might appear. And you can actually pick out those colors in real life because colors are energy, and you can work with them like really consciously. So I think for me, dream work is like a really, really powerful tool uh, to actually tune into your intuition.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. One of the big things for me that my intuition has told me for the longest time was that I needed to write.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like every single year in January, I would start a new blog and I would write 2 or 3 posts and I would be like, I really want to write, but I don't really know how, and I'm not a professional and nobody reads it. So why do I keep doing this? And so
Mm-hmm.
there'd be 2 or 3 posts and then I would stop. And then, the next year would come around and I would do the same thing and I would do the same thing. And I have so many journals, like these books that I fancy up because I like them. But these cheap little books, I just have tons of them just sitting
Mm-hmm.
around everywhere because I love to write. I love to share my feelings and my thoughts. But then when I would sit down in front of the computer and I'm like, oh, I'm putting this out there in the world, like it's really, really tough to write about that kind of stuff because I've never met anybody like me. But that's what I feel like I should share with the world. And the whole situation changed for me last year because I started my blog in January and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write. I'm going to write about the hard stuff that feels really icky, but I know that it needs to get out. And I'm going to write even if nobody reads it, because even if there's just one person out there who needs it and they see it, that's all that matters. There doesn't need to
Right.
be all these people. But I found that the process of writing, the more that I write, the easier it gets. And the more fun I have, the more I enjoy it. And now it's not like this difficult process. It's something that I look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found the same thing?
That sounds amazing. Yeah, I think so because I think when I first started my blog, that was 6 years ago, and it was after I'd done all the workshopping I could possibly do. And I realized that I needed to have some, like have the courage. I think having the courage to say what you think and feel, and like that really is what writing is about. So, and I think blogging helps you do that, as you said. And I think when I first started my blog, I was not sure because, like you, I had started a blog many years before that. So I wasn't sure how long I would keep it up for, whether this is like a real thing and whether I could be consistent enough, whether I was courageous enough. And but I just decided, I was like, let me just, this is, so I just sort of threw my hat over the fence. And I began. And I think, like you, I found that I think as you write more, you get used to taking like these little steps which lead to bigger steps. And I think blogging really helped me clarify my voice, helped me say what I think, and not just. I mean, I always knew what I thought,
Right.
but help me own what I think, and have it be more visible to more people. And so definitely, I think I've been on that journey as well. And I think it definitely gets easier. Like the more you do, it's almost like the more you do anything, the easier it gets. And I think probably one thing that probably holds INFP and INFJ writers back is that we are very private as well. So I think that was a huge, that was a big concern for me because I felt like, oh, I'm a very private person, and here, and blogging does need a voice. So you need to be yourself when you're blogging. So I think just taking baby steps with that. And I think also, I think for intuitive writers, I think the personal is political in a sense. So, so we I think although it's a very sort of like, but so although we are very private, I think there's also a big part of us that wants to be seen for who we are
Yeah.
and communicate, with authenticity.
Yeah.
So Yeah.
Yes, I'm definitely in that place. I don't know if it's the age that I am. I just turned 34 the
Mhm.
end of last year, so I'm like looking at 35 going, okay, there's some things that I need to get in, in line in my life. And one of those things is that keeps coming up and that I keep hearing from other people too is that I don't really know who I am. I'm a different person with my family, I'm a different person at work, I'm a different person with each one of my friends, and I don't know who I am. And I think writing for me has really helped me figure out some of that, because like you said, it helps you to kind of open up some of the privacy, but then it helps you to think through some of the things that you have to almost take a stand on, because when you're writing them down and sharing them with a lot of other people, um,
Right.
especially in the age of social media, sometimes you have to stand up for the things that you write about. And that's definitely something that goes through my mind when I sit down to start writing is like, okay, what do I really believe about this? If somebody asks me about this, how am I going to defend it?
Yeah. So yeah, that's true. I think writing helps you think more deeply. Just as you said, helps you think more deeply in why you think about something a certain way. Um, and I think it's that, that saying that a strong voice repels as much as it attracts. I
Yeah.
think it's very true, because the more you are yourself, they're going to be people who really love you, and they're going to be people who think you are, you're not their cup of tea.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I completely get that. So I think that's definitely one of the benefits of blogging and sort of putting yourself out there.
Sure. So do you still do workshops and coaching for writing?
Yeah, I do coaching for writing. I do. My book is a memoir. It's called The Empath's Journey, and because I wrote it over a period of 2 years. I did countless drafts. After a point, I stopped counting. I did like upwards of 14 drafts on it. So I really sort of like got in deep, and I really thought about the entire process of crafting a memoir. Uh, so I teach primarily memoir writers and writers who are writing from a very personal space, because I think uh, writing from writing memoir or writing about things which are deeply meaningful to you, it brings up its own challenges, and it brings up these decisions which you have to make. Because I think as a memoir writer, you have to have decide what are your ethical standards for writing that memoir. Because I think as an intuitive person, as a person who cares about other people's feelings, you're not going to be comfortable just sort of laying it out all there. Which you might have heard people, people say that as a writer, everything is sort of like grist for the mill, like everything is usable. But I don't think that's the case for intuitive writers, because we care about, um, I think we care about people and relationships more than we care about anything else. And I think we also care about fairness. uh, if you're writing a memoir, you're telling your side of the story, basically. So and if you let's say quote somebody or you mention someone, they are not going to be able to write a book about their side of the story. So you need to have pretty pretty high, you have to really think about it, and think about how you are going to craft the narrative, what you're going to include and not include. So I coach memoir writers, and I have a website called Walking Through Transitions, which is basically for sensitive creatives. It talks about sensitivity and it talks about creativity a lot. So yeah, so it's a bunch of different things that I do.
Wow. I hope you guys enjoyed that interview as much as I did. I really, really enjoyed speaking to Ritu. She had so much amazing information to share, and it really got me thinking about being my true, authentic self and how many times I've tried to hide that just to make friends with somebody who I didn't think would like me, or to try to fit in with people, when really I've learned just recently in the last couple of years, really, that when I'm actually my true authentic self, my natural self, I attract a lot more of the right kind of people. And it isn't such a struggle to find friends. It isn't such a struggle to just get through the day, because I'm not having to pretend about things. I can be honest and real, and nobody's telling me that I'm wrong, or that I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Well, there are a lot of people who tell me that I'm wrong, but that's just a part of life, right? It's not my friends who are telling me that I'm inherently wrong, because the friends that I have now, they understand who I am as a person, and it's not something that they want to change. So yeah, I hope that you got that message from the podcast. Like I said, I really enjoyed the interview. Just as a reminder, make sure that you go to thequietonespodcast.com for all of the links that we spoke about. And if you haven't checked out the video interviews, you can watch them on youtube.com/thequietonespodcast. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and we'll see you again next week.